Hi everyone, it's Jenna, and this video is all about posture. How to sit well, how to align your spine properly, because I know it can be confusing. Maybe you're hearing a lot of different opinions on how you should be sitting, how you should align your body, your spine, what exercises you should be doing. So we're gonna go ahead and go over that today. I'm Jenna and I am a movement coach, and I help people that are struggling with pain or an injury get back to doing things that they love to do. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get started and start with posture. So I'm going to suggest starting out by standing at a wall so that you can feel where your spine is in space and you can get a sense of the alignment that you want to find when you're in a seated position and you don't have that feedback of the wall. So this is a really good place to start. So find a wall, bring your spine against the wall, starting with your pelvis first. And I have my knees softly bent. If I don't have my knees bent, it's really hard to get my back against the wall. So I have my feet about 6 inches away from the wall. I soften the knees. I find my pelvis heavy on both sides against the wall. I'm going to just take a deep breath in. And I want to see if I can feel the back of my ribs connecting to the wall as I take a breath. That will really help you to create more contact with the wall behind you without trying to force your ribs against the wall, because that just doesn't feel good, right? So we're creating this expansion through the breath, breathing into the back of the ribs, and that also helps you to establish that neutral spine by breathing into the back. And then my ponytail's in the way, but see if you can also now feel the shoulders and the back of your head against the wall. Your arms can just be relaxed at your sides. And then just notice here, where do you not feel contact with your spine against the wall? And those would be some areas to do some corrective exercises. For most people, that's their ribs. And that's because many of us tend to flare our ribs. That has to do with an imbalance in the muscles. The core muscles here, the abdominal muscles are weaker, and the back muscles are short and tight. So they're pulling the spine into a bow and thrusting the ribs forward. So that's why it can be challenging to find the ribs against the wall. But like I said, just doing that breath into the back of your body can really help you to find that connection with the wall. So this is an exercise, and it's also an assessment to see, where do I not feel the contact with my spine against the wall, and it gives you a sense. For other people, it's their head, because if you do have kyphosis, which is an exaggerated curve in the thoracic spine or the upper back, then it's going to be really hard to get your head against the wall without doing this or overarching your neck. So a true assessment would be to gently tuck your chin towards your chest and then keep that chin tug as you're bringing your head back against the wall. And if you can't do that, then that means you want to work more on your thoracic spine or your upper spine, loosen that up, do some mobility exercises so that you can be able to eventually get your head against the wall, which is going to really improve your posture if you work on those areas of your spine that don't have that connection to the wall. So I will give you some of those exercises that you can do at the end of the video to loosen up and mobilize those areas of your spine. But what we're going to do right now is come to a seated position so that we can go over what would a neutral spine look like if you're seated. So go ahead and grab a chair or something that you would typically sit on, especially if you work at a desk. So I'm going to use this stool to demonstrate what a neutral spine would look like in seated. And if you do have a chair like this, this would be my suggestion, if you are sitting a lot throughout the day, to find a chair where you can sit towards the edge of it. Because for one, that's going to allow you to really work on your posture by strengthening the muscles of your back that would hold you upright in this position. If we're always sitting against the backrest of a chair, then those muscles never get a chance to work. And if a muscle doesn't get to work, it's going to atrophy because we're not using it. So sitting at the edge of a chair or perching would be my suggestion for sitting. So we're going to, again, imagine that you have that wall behind you. So I have my sacrum against that imaginary wall. I have my ribs and I have my shoulders stacked over my ribs. So this is the plumb line of the body. The ears are going to now stack over those shoulders, and that would complete the plumb line. So it's from the center of the ear through the center of the shoulder, center of the ribs, and hip. So I know for myself, and this is very common, especially for women, that I tend to flare my ribs forward. So I have to work a lot more on bringing my ribs back. So sitting like that, it's not natural and it doesn't necessarily feel comfortable, but it's an exercise. And the more we sit in that way where we're maintaining a neutral spine, then it really helps to strengthen those muscles and it won't be so uncomfortable to sit like that for very long. So we want to think about these positions when we're sitting or doing really anything. It's an exercise. We're maintaining good posture and it's not going to feel comfortable, especially if you are used to relaxing against the back of a chair. So that's why my suggestion is to give yourself 20 minutes at a time in any position, especially if you work at a computer or at a desk throughout the day. So set an alarm on your phone and every 20 minutes, change your position. Go from sitting to standing. If you can move your computer or your desk up and down, that would be ideal. And another suggestion I'm going to give is to sit down on the floor if you can. So I can put a link in the description box below to the type of computer stand that I use. I can use it when I'm sitting down or standing, and then I can adjust the level. If I want to sit on the floor, I like to sit up on a cushion and then have my computer at the right level so that I can sit there comfortably. And again, it's an exercise. So these are ways that you can incorporate more nutritious movement throughout the day, because when we're taking a look at movement, we want to be looking at our movement micros and our movement macros. So what micro movements are you doing throughout the day? And exercising 1 hour a day just isn't enough movement for our bodies. Our bodies were designed to be moving all day long, climbing trees, sprinting, bending down, being on the floor, playing with the kids. There's so many movements that our bodies were designed to do throughout the day. So let's go ahead and take a look at how would you sit on the floor maintaining a neutral spine. Okay, so I'm sitting on a stability disc, and this is something that you can easily buy online, or some sporting goods stores have them. I can put a link in the description below, and this is a really nice thing to sit on if you're working, because it has that instability, which is actually an exercise that activates your core. It helps your muscles to work even more. And so it's pretty awesome to be able to sit like this, have your muscles working and doing something while you're, doing the work that you have to do throughout the day. So in this case, when I'm sitting down on the floor, and for most people, they're going to really need a pretty high surface to sit on in order to be comfortable, because you'll want your hips to be higher than your knees to help you find that natural curve in your lower back. So here you could even bring your hand to your lower back, see if you feel that curve there. Then you're going to bring your ribs back, your shoulders back, your ears over your shoulders, just like we did against our wall in the beginning of our session today. And how does that feel? You'll start to get to a point where you really can notice when you're in alignment and when you're out of alignment, because alignment is our blueprint. This is how our bodies were designed to sit, designed to stand. if you look at how a baby walks and crawls and moves its body, it's on hands and knees, it's always finding a neutral spine, which is really amazing. And it just goes to show that this is the way our bodies were designed. It's the perfect blueprint. And somewhere along the way, we got out of that posture and that perfect blueprint. So there is a way that we can find that again. We may need to do some exercises. We may need to do some correctives to be able to mobilize certain areas, certain joints, so that we can sit more comfortably, so that our spine can move better. And we're going to go ahead and go over those right now. So now we're going to do some exercises to help mobilize and strengthen and align some of the areas that might have felt like they were inhibiting you from having really good posture or sitting in a neutral spine. So if you were feeling stiffness in your back and it just felt hard to find that natural curve in your spine, then this one is for you. You're going to lay on your back. And you're going to just start by lining up your heels with your sitting bones. So just like we did at the wall, now notice how you feel here. Laying on the floor, gravity's doing its work. So it may feel a little easier to connect your ribs to the mat. Just notice. And now we're going to do an exercise called the pelvic clock. You're going to imagine that your pelvis is a clock. Your belly button is the top of the clock, so 12 o'clock, and your tailbone is 6 o'clock. And what we're going to do is rock back and forth between that 12 and 6. And this will help to mobilize your lower back, and especially some of those stiff areas of the spine where the vertebrae just aren't moving as well. This is a great way to open that up. And I always like to incorporate the breath. So you can start by taking a breath in. You're going to exhale, rock to your 12 o'clock, and to inhale, rock to 6 o'clock. Rock to 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. And I'm really trying to focus on the movement in my lower back. So I want to keep my ribs down in order to avoid doing a big arch in my spine. Instead, I'm really trying to isolate the movement in my lumbar spine, primarily my lower back. So this is a great exercise to do in the morning, especially if you wake up and your back is feeling stiff. So doing that one should help you find your neutral spine. So now when you come to 6 o'clock, you can even feel there should be a natural curve onto your lower back. And just like we practiced earlier at the wall, your ribs should be down. Okay, so you can practice that neutral spine here as well with the floor underneath you to help you get a sense of where your body is in space. Now, if you felt more stiffness in your upper back and it felt like you couldn't get your head to the wall, this next exercise is going to be for you. So for that one, you're going to go ahead and come onto your hands and knees, and you're going to feel your shoulders over your wrists, your hips over your knees, and a neutral spine here feels like you're resting hot cups of tea that you don't want to spill against the back of your head, shoulders, ribs, and pelvis. So again, if you tend to flare your ribs, you may need to bring your ribs up a little bit more, and that's your neutral spine. So it's just good to establish that first, and then we're going to do a few cat-cows. Moving from flexion through neutral to extension. So with the breath, exhale to round your spine, and we're really emphasizing curving the back as much as you can. Inhale to create that little arch, lifting your head, heart, and tail. Exhale to round your spine. Inhale to arch. One more time like that. Exhale to round and arch. And then find neutral again. Okay, very good. From there, you're going to go ahead and slowly drag one arm under your shoulder. You can bring the side of your head down. This is called thread the needle. This will help to loosen up the upper back by working on your thoracic rotation. The other side. And if you can't get your head down, there's a couple options. You can just kind of hover it above the mat as much as you need to, or you could put a block or a pillow under your head so that you don't have to just hang out there with your head in space unsupported. So I would suggest doing this 3 times on each side. And you may find that if you do this every day, it gets a little easier every day to go into that rotation and to bring your shoulder down. Because the ideal position would be being able to bring your shoulder down and your head down. And I'm just moving here with the breath. Do one more time. Okay, very good. So the last exercise I'll show you is a psoas stretch. And the reason why the psoas is important when it comes to having good posture is because when the psoas is short and tight, which happens if we sit too much throughout the day, it will pull our spine into extension. So it will contribute to lordosis, or an overarch of the back. And that's going to make it hard, as we explored earlier at the wall, to bring your ribs back, okay? So that's why your psoas is an important player in this whole anatomy game when we're looking at the musculoskeletal reasons why you may not be sitting in good posture. Well, it may have to do with certain muscles are pulling you into that position. So you're basically just working against your own body, and this is what we can do to help open that up so that you can more easily sit in a neutral spine. Okay, so for that, you're going to go ahead and come into a lunge. Now, when we're down here in this lunge with the hands on the mat, this is called a low lunge. It doesn't get as much into the psoas, but it still probably feels good because it stretches the hip flexors. But what I would suggest is coming into a more upright position with your spine vertical, bringing your hands to your hips, and then just slowly sending your hips forward in space. And you might maybe not feel as big of a stretch in this position, but what we're doing is we're lengthening from where the psoas attaches at the top of the thigh up to the ribs. It goes up through the diaphragm, so it also has to do with our breath. If we have a tight diaphragm from not breathing as deeply, that's also going to affect the psoas. Everything is so interconnected. So by opening this up, this is going to help us to sit with better posture. Now we're going to go ahead and do that on the other side. We can just start with a low lunge to soften and loosen those muscles up to begin. After a few breaths here, you can start to come up to a more upright position. Bring your hands onto your hips. Make sure your hips are square. Slowly send your pelvis forward and only go as far as you can, again, maintain that neutral spine. One way you can feel that for yourself is if you bring one hand onto your back, one hand onto the front of the body, and just notice, are your hands maybe shifting forward or back? And instead, you just mostly want to keep your spine in the same position. You can even think about lifting your chest a little bit too, and that will help to stretch those upper fibers of the psoas. Okay, well, I hope that felt good today, and then that was helpful for you to understand maybe why it may be challenging to sit with good posture, and some of the things that you can do to help to support your body and mobilize these areas of your spine and your hips that may be contributing to poor posture. So if you would like more support with this, and you would like to have a better understanding of what's going on with your body, I help to create an individualized plan for my clients so that they know exactly the exercises and the plan that will take them forward towards their goals. So whether that's sitting with good posture, or maybe you're recovering from an injury and you want to get back to a sport, that is what I do. So feel free to reach out to me. I would love to connect with you. The information is below to connect with me. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care.